During the brutal winters of World War II, when frostbite could kill faster than a bullet, soldiers on both sides discovered something remarkable. A body heat trick so effective it allowed men to survive nights that dropped to 40 below zero, with nothing but thin uniforms and sheer willpower. This wasn't fancy gear, and it didn't rely on modern technology. It was a method rooted in understanding how the human body conserves and generates heat, a forgotten survival practice that modern soldiers, mountaineers, and even Arctic explorers could still learn from today. So let's dig into the forgotten World War II body heat trick that quite literally saved lives in frozen trenches, mountain passes and bomber cockpits, and how you can use the same principle to stay alive and warm when the temperature drops. When winter hit the Eastern Front in 1941, the German Wehrmacht, ill-equipped for the Russian cold, learned the hard way that layers of wool meant little when your body was already losing the heat battle from within. Meanwhile, Soviet troops, many with fewer supplies, seemed to endure the same cold with greater success. It wasn't magic, it was body heat science. Soldiers learned that warmth wasn't just about adding more fabric, it was about trapping the heat you already had. In bitter temperatures, the body prioritizes keeping your core, your heart, lungs and vital organs warm. Your skin, hands and feet become secondary. The trick was to help the body recirculate its natural heat rather than constantly trying to replace it. Soviet partisans, Finnish ski troops, and even downed RAF pilots in Norway found that sharing warmth, layering in a specific way, and maintaining circulation made the difference between life and frostbite. The core of this forgotten trick was something soldiers called body heat stacking. It sounds simple, but its effectiveness came from the precision of how it was done. 2 or more soldiers would share confined space, inside a dugout, tent, or even a foxhole, and use their combined body heat to raise the ambient temperature just enough to stop hypothermia. However, they didn't just huddle randomly. They layered their clothing and shelter to create what's called a microclimate, a sealed pocket of warm air that the body generates and maintains with minimal energy loss. They would start with a thin inner layer, dry if possible, followed by looser insulating layers that trapped air. The outermost layer, often oiled canvas or wax cloth, blocked wind and moisture. Once that layer was sealed, the group would sit or lie close together, back to back or side by side, reducing the exposed surface area. Even in subzero weather, this method could raise the internal temperature by 10 to 15 degrees Celsius, enough to survive the night. Modern tests with reenactors and survival experts have confirmed that 2 people sharing a bivouac sack or sleeping bag can double heat retention time compared to 1 person alone. In the Ardennes, US paratroopers trapped behind German lines reportedly used this same method, calling it buddy heat. It may sound counterintuitive, but fires weren't always an option, and even when they were, they often worked against soldiers. A campfire draws air, meaning heat escapes faster from clothing and shelters. Worse, in occupied territory or during stealth operations, a visible flame could invite enemy attention. Body heat stacking created a heat reservoir that didn't rely on combustion. It used the body's metabolic energy, the constant output of warmth from muscle activity, digestion and circulation. Each human body produces about 100 watts of heat at rest. Put 3 men in a foxhole, and you're effectively running a 300-watt heater. When insulated properly, that warmth stays contained. In modern survival terms, this same principle is what makes bivy sacks, thermal emergency blankets, and reflective sleeping bags work. They don't create heat, they trap what's already there. If you find yourself outdoors in the cold, whether hiking, camping, or in a survival situation, you can replicate this World War II trick in a few steps. First, focus on staying dry. Sweat is the enemy of warmth. Soldiers in the war would strip damp layers before nightfall, even in freezing weather, to avoid the rapid heat loss caused by evaporative cooling. So, here's the thing. Second, create your microclimate. You want to use natural insulation, like pine needles, dry grass, or even leaves, to pad your resting area and, separate your body from the cold ground. It's important to layer your clothing so the air is trapped between, not compressed out. And finally, if you're not alone, share warmth with your partner. Back-to-back contact maximizes heat transfer to each other's core zones without fully exposing your front to cold air. Now, even if you're sleeping solo, you can mimic the same principle by tucking your knees close to your chest, reducing that exposed surface area and sealing your sleeping bag or blanket tightly at the neck. The goal, really, is the same as those WWII survivors. Conserve every calorie of heat you produce. What makes this trick so powerful isn't just that it works. It's that it actually emerged from sheer necessity. Imagine men with no high-tech clothing, no synthetic insulation, and no modern tents. Yet they managed to find a way to manipulate basic physics and physiology to stay alive. After the war, as industrial fabrics like nylon, polyester and thinsulate took over, the simple wisdom of body heat stacking just faded into obscurity. And yet modern cold-weather military manuals have quietly brought it back, under these sterile terms like passive thermal cohabitation. For survivalists, preppers, or anyone interested in fieldcraft, the takeaway is clear as day. The most advanced survival tool you have is your body itself. If you learn how it regulates heat, you can outlast the cold with almost nothing. So, the next time you face the cold, whether it's on a winter hike, a mountain trail, or even just a power outage at home, remember the soldiers who survived those Siberian nights without modern comforts. Their secret wasn't in the gear, it was in knowledge. The World War II body heat trick remains, honestly, one of the most effective, time-tested methods for preserving warmth, endurance, and life itself. If you enjoyed uncovering this piece of forgotten wartime wisdom, don't forget to subscribe to In the Beginning for more deep dives into lost survival methods, wartime ingenuity, and the practical knowledge our ancestors used to outlast the impossible. Share this with a fellow history or survival enthusiast. You never know when knowledge like this might save a life.